everybody, this is the Wikstrand. So I have been brought up on, mostly American cinema things. So I'm not, surprised when the Romans speak English, or when, Nazi soldiers speak with fake German accents, or Russian Bond villain speaks with fake Russian accents and stuff like that. It is when people who should speak English are speaking in a different language. That is where I have to do some, mental pole vaulting and stuff like that. It is especially jarring when it comes to spaghetti westerns that are, when they speak Italian, and also, takes place during Civil War, and seeing, the blue and the reds, and they're speaking to each other in Italian. Now, they had to do that because it was, Italian movies and, with Italian actors and stuff like that. But I can almost make it work. But it was a very, very steep hill to climb when it came to watching a spaghetti western where they spoke French. Should this actually be a spaghetti western, by the way? Or is it a bouillabaisse western, or an escargot western? I don't know. But the language isn't the problem with this movie. It's most other things that are the problem with this movie. This is not a very good movie. The best thing about the entire movie is probably the theme song, which is played in the beginning of this movie. It's very catchy tune with, doo-wop choirs and stuff like that. When the Colt and the gun are king, and, the guy who thinks that he's fucking Tom Jones and stuff like that. But let's find out what this movie is about, shall we? And I'm a little confused when it comes to the title of this movie, because it's apparently called A Cemetery Without Crosses, but it is also called a rope and a cult. I prefer a rope and a cult, but let's find out what they're going to do with a rope and what they're going to do with a cult. Mostly shooting people and hanging people, probably. This is Cemetery Without Crosses, I think. So during the opening credits, where we have this very catchy tune, Ben is being pursued by Roger's henchmen on horseback. Rogers is, this classic bandit leader that, most spaghetti westerns has as the villain, and they're killing him in front of his wife Marie. Marie is understandably heartbroken and bitter after having lost her husband, and she kind of hires Manuel. She and Manuel apparently had some kind of a thing going on, in years past, and she convinces him to, take on a kind of a revenge plot. So he infiltrates Roger's gang. Up until this point, it had sort of been going on like a traditional spaghetti western. I was intrigued. I didn't quite know where they were going with this one, but I was still interested in where they were going. I had been, up until this point, okay with the fact that there was a lot of things that did not happen in this movie. There was a lot of stalling. There was a lot of sequences where absolutely nothing happens. Nobody said anything, nobody did anything, and it amounts to absolutely nothing. There was just a lot of foreboding, which I, hoped would, amount to something, but it didn't. It did work during the, practical joke that it did during the dinner at Roger's place. That was kind of fun. As a revenge tale, it is surprisingly lackluster, with characters whose motivations and actions are, let's say, a little bit difficult to understand why they're doing certain things, and why they want to do this, and why did they do that, and maybe they explained it but I missed it, or something like that. I don't know, but I ended up caring less and less for what was going to happen to our characters, and then they came up with an ending that I absolutely didn't see coming, that I thought was kind of great, very French and very abrupt, and then the movie was over. I was like, okay, that was an ending I didn't see coming. It should be said that this unexpected and pretty good ending could not save this movie. It is an absolute chore to get through. It moves so slow. The acting is pretty terrible. The characters are very lackluster, and the story is a little bit meh, because they kind of get lost from point A to point B, and with no real characters to attach yourself to, it is a little bit of a shoulder shrug. It isn't an absolutely terrible movie, but it is a bad movie. When it comes to spaghetti westerns, this is one of the weakest ones I've seen, I think. I don't know if it is because it is French or because it tries too hard to be, you know, this more melancholy western or whatever it tries to do. Whatever it tried, it didn't succeed with it, in my opinion. There is a severe lack of cool action, and the pacing of this movie is absolutely dreadful. It feels like absolutely nothing happens, and then absolutely nothing continues to happen. And just when you think that something is about to happen, it doesn't happen. And I just grew more and more impatient with this movie. And the one thing it actually had going for itself, the awesome theme song, well, they kind of killed off that thing too, because everybody plays this thing all the time. Even though people are sitting outside of, you know, saloons and stuff like that, take out a, you know, guitar and start playing do 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 do. And after a while you get a little sick even of that thing, even if it was the best thing going. So not a recommendation, a pretty bad western. An incredibly slow and boring movie with an exciting ending. I do have to give this movie 24 points. I've always had a soft spot for spaghetti westerns, but this one was very underwhelming and very lackluster. It's never a good thing when you have basically a revenge plot, but kind of forget that you have a revenge to, you know, carry out. That's kind of, you know, essential to the story in my opinion, but maybe it's just me. So I'll see you next time for, well, so-and-so reviewing, well, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.